This is 205, Portrait of Sin Sukju, 1417 to 1475. It's made by the Imperial Bureau of Painting, that would be a government office bureau in Korea. It is made in the 15th century, and it's a hanging scroll with ink and color on silk. The context is that China's culture spread, we know, to Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and that's called sinification, or the kind of Chinification of those countries that were China's neighbors. China spread Neo-Confucianism, writing, silk, art and architecture, and Buddhism. And we see here that this is an art form that spread, this portraiture. You can see on the right here, this is the National kind of Portrait Gallery in Korea that features three massive portraits of three of the leaders of Korea during the Joseon dynasty when this took place. Korea was subjugated by China during the Mongol rule, during the Yuan dynasty, and Korea paid tribute to China during that time and later in order to kind of say, hey, we're going to pay you some tribute, just leave us alone. And that was their relationship. But definitely culture spread from one to the other and back. Context is that Confucianism that spread into Korea from China, we know about, is all about kind of keeping order in society and using the scholars to help govern, is this idea. And Sin Sukju was a scholar serving in the Joseon dynasty government. You can see in terms of context that this is a portrait of a Chinese emperor, this sample, and you can see how this portrait of Sin Sukju really resembles this Chinese portrait. More context, Sin Sukju, as I said, was a scholar official, so he was meritorious, meaning that he was promoted based on his merit. He had done things like he cataloged the paintings for the royal court. He was a linguist, helped create an alphabet for Korea. He headed diplomatic missions to China and Japan. Thus, he demonstrated filial piety, keyword for this piece. Filial piety is when a person does good things that honor their parents or their leaders. It is showing respect to the elderly, to your superiors, and Sin Sukju did that. This is a picture taken from a Netflix show. You can see this man is an emperor in Korea during the Joseon dynasty, and he has a dragon emblem on his robe, showing that he was an emperor, just like the dragon was the sign of the emperor in China. So the form, that what do we see in this piece of the portrait of Sin Sukju? It's formal. This is not a casual piece. It's full length of his body. He has his head turned just a little bit to the side. We know that because we can see just one of his ears. His hands are concealed in a very long arm sleeves. He is sitting in an armchair. It's a little bit wonky. You can see that here. He's got depth. We see depth because of the folds of his robes and the lines that are drawn by the artist going back and up. And his feet are resting on a stool. His robe has folds in it, and it's got embroidery of two peacocks. So these two peacocks, although I don't know that these guys are wearing two peacocks, but two peacocks were an emblem that tell us that he was a government official of first rank. He was high ranking. You can see these guys have that same or similar emblem. Folks back here don't. So I'm guessing these folks are higher ranking in government than these two who are carrying the books. There were strict requirements placed on the Imperial Bureau of Painting as to how to do these portraits. And it was important that the portraits be, or the people portrayed in the portrait be exactly as they are, meaning You don't, um, you make them look real. You don't give them pretty stuff if they're not looking pretty, right? There were a team of critics who even checked out the portraits to make sure that they resembled the person being painted. And just to give you another idea here, these are scholars. You can see all of their scrolls sitting around this table. They're in the Joseon Dynasty government, and you can see this on some great Netflix shows, the intrigue of this court and how these scholars operate at court. Okay, the function of the Portrait of Sin Sukju is that it was kind of a serious recognition, an award for Sin Sukju, that he was so loyal, had such filial piety, that he was painted by the court. The other function is that this would be displayed in a shrine along with other portraits, kind of like propaganda by the government saying, look, we have these great scholar officials, and they're so loyal to this awesome court. The third function would be that these portraits, like portraits in any funeral in the United States and in modern day Korea, would be displayed at a funeral. And then in Korea, less so the America, they would be maintained in a shrine honoring that ancestor, and they would be a source of kind of the spirit of that person, and they would be honored by the family uh, on their death with food, and for every year since then. So 3 functions of the Portrait of Sin Sukju, painted by the Imperial Bureau of Painting in the 15th century. It's a hanging scroll made of ink and color on silk.